Well, inevitably we learn from history. We know that the past, the present and the future are connected in many, many ways. And we feel in particular at the moment that Australia, economically speaking at least, has reached a crossroads. It's a crossroads that evolves from the fact that we've had 2 decades of almost uninterrupted economic growth. And now we're moving forward. There's uncertainty as to what our resilience is from the past, what our challenges are to the future. And the intention is that this book throws some light based upon historical experience to help us understand our future directions. And indeed, if there was a key message behind the book, it is that we want to use this type of historical work to help refocus economic narratives about Australia. And it's economic narratives that inform policy, both in business and government circles. And if we don't get those narratives correct, then we're likely to advance policies and strategies that are not best for the future of Australia. One in particular relates to population growth and immigration. So there's been a lot of discussion for quite a while about what our population size will look like in 10 or 20 or 30 years. Will that size be economically sustainable? The history tells us that in many ways it's economic incentives and economic imperatives that drive population and immigration growth. And therefore, when we've got high levels of economic growth, this induces more rapid rates of population growth. It encourages more immigrants to come into the country. And in those periods where we've had economic downturn, we've also had lower population and immigration growth. So it's the economic incentives that are driving it rather than concern about the economic impact of immigration growth. Another question that's often raised is about urbanisation and cities. So what is city growth going to be like in 10 or 20 years? We have a very high rate of urbanisation as a share of total population today, but there's nothing new about that. If we go back to the mid-20th century or beginning of the 20th century, those same questions were asked. One thing I think that we can be clear about from our historic past is that we will continue to have a large population base in the cities, and that we'll continue to have to address those questions of how we grow the cities, how we incorporate populations into expanding cities. But another topical question, which is about manufacturing and this ongoing debate about how large our manufacturing sector should be, how we grow jobs in manufacturing. Australia's manufacturing sector is about as large now as it was at the time of Federation. Now, what is different is that our manufacturing today is a lot more sophisticated, and it focuses on niche industries that don't require cheap labour or economies of scale to run. So we can't compete with those countries with low labour costs and very large markets, but we can continue to invest in research and development that enables our manufacturing to be very technologically sophisticated. So there are a few examples of the way in which history can inform our future. And while a knowledge of history is an enriching experience in itself, it's also vital that our understanding and knowledge of history will help to determine our future narratives, our future strategies for the continued economic growth of Australia.